You probably learned very early how not to need much. You learned how to stay quiet, how to handle things yourself, how to not make a fuss. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that being easy to deal with was the same as being strong. But what no one ever told you is that this skill didn't come from confidence. It came from learning that needing comfort wasn't safe. If you're listening to this and thinking, I'm just independent, I don't like bothering people, this video is for you. Because today we're talking about what happens when a child learns to survive by becoming low maintenance, and how that lesson quietly shapes their entire adult life. When a child grows up in an environment where emotional needs are ignored, dismissed, or consistently delayed, the child adapts, not consciously, not dramatically, quietly. They learn patterns like this. When I cry, nothing changes. When I ask for help, it's inconvenient. When I need comfort, I feel like a burden. So the child makes a decision, not in words, but in behavior. I'll need less. This is not maturity, it's a survival strategy. Psychology sometimes calls this an attachment adaptation. But in simple terms, it means the child's nervous system learns that closeness doesn't reliably bring relief. So instead of reaching outward, the child turns inward. Think of it like a thermostat that's been set too low for years. The room doesn't feel warm, but you stop noticing the cold. You just put on another layer and tell yourself you're fine. Over time, the child becomes easy. They don't ask. They don't complain. They don't interrupt. Adults often praise this. Teachers call them well-behaved. Parents call them mature. But what's actually happening is that the child is shrinking their needs to fit the room. And here's the key part. The brain wires this adaptation as safety. The nervous system learns, I'm safest when I don't require much. That lesson doesn't disappear just because you grow up. At first, this pattern looks harmless, even admirable. You're calm, you're capable, you don't rely on anyone. But slowly, something starts to go missing. You lose the ease of asking for help, not because you don't need it, but because it feels unnatural, almost embarrassing to admit that you do. You lose emotional closeness. People may be around you, even care about you, but they don't fully know you. There's a distance you can't quite explain, because you're always managing yourself instead of letting yourself be held. You lose rest. Not physical rest, but emotional rest. The kind that comes from knowing someone else is carrying part of the load. You're always slightly braced, slightly alert, even when things are going well. You lose authenticity. You filter your reactions. You downplay your disappointments. You soften your wants before they ever leave your mouth. And perhaps most quietly, you lose the belief that your needs are allowed to exist without justification. Every ignored child carries one central fear into adulthood. If I need too much, I'll be left. That fear keeps the pattern alive. This pattern doesn't announce itself loudly. It blends into your life and calls itself just how I am. In relationships, it shows up when something hurts you, but you decide not to bring it up. In relationships, it often starts with disappointment or feeling overlooked, so you tell yourself it's not worth mentioning. In the moment, that helps you avoid conflict and rejection. But over time, resentment builds and intimacy slowly erodes. At work, it shows up as over-functioning. When a task feels unclear or overwhelming, you handle it alone instead of asking for support. In the short term, you feel competent and self-reliant. But in the long run, it leads to burnout, invisibility, and being taken for granted. In decision-making, it appears as minimizing your preferences. When someone asks what you want, you say, "I'm fine with anything." That keeps you from feeling demanding in the moment, but slowly, you disconnect from what you actually enjoy. And in your own self-talk, it sounds like being realistic. When you feel a need or desire, you immediately downplay it. That protects you from disappointment at first, but over time, You stop trusting your own signals. Even in moments of care, when someone offers help, you might feel uncomfortable. You rush to reassure them that you're okay. Not because you are, but because accepting care feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. None of these behaviors mean you're broken. They mean you learned how to survive in an environment where emotional space was limited. This pattern doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be understood. The way forward is not about becoming needy or dependent. It's about slowly teaching your nervous system that needing does not equal danger anymore. Here's a simple 3-step process. First, notice without judgment. When you minimize a need or stop yourself from asking, just notice it. No criticism, no correction. Simply recognize. This is the old strategy showing up. Second, interrupt with one small choice. You don't need to fully express everything. Just soften the habit slightly. Instead of saying it's fine, try, actually, I could use a little help. Small honesty is enough. Third, replace with a safer response. Choose people and moments where the risk is low. Practice receiving without over-explaining. Let the experience teach your body that nothing bad happens when you take up a bit more space. This is not a fast process, but it is a gentle one. You didn't become low maintenance because you didn't matter. You became low maintenance because no one showed you that your needs would be met. And learning that now, slowly, safely, is allowed. If this felt uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone, and you're not weak. If you want more reflections like this, consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who might recognize themselves too.